Welcome back to Executive IT, the podcast that gives tech leaders the real talk on how to drive smarter, faster, and more secure decision making across your organization. I'm your host, Evan Kiely, and today we're getting into the sometimes tricky, always important balance between end user experience and IT performance. More specifically, we're talking about how IT teams and the business can better partner to solve organizational problems without sacrificing speed, experience, or sanity. Joining me today is someone who's led this kind of collaboration from the front lines for decades. Please welcome Volker, a senior executive with deep experience in navigating the intersection of systems, security, and people. Volker, it's great to have you here today. Before we jump in, anything you'd like to share with the listeners about your role, kind of what you're working on today, any of your experience?
Hey, Evan, good meeting you. My experience is basically having worked for large organizations, having worked for startup companies, having worked for private equity, as well as for non-for-profit organizations. And currently, I'm working at a large FI at the interface between business and IT. So I'm focusing really on the business processes and how to fulfill the project intake and capacity management, as well as the budget, as well as any type of non-operational activities within the business IT activities.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you joining us today. If it's okay with you, I'm just going to jump right in.
Yep.
Start with something fundamental, right? IT and the business, they often approach problems from different angles. One is focused on security and stability. The other simply on getting the job done. When it works, it's powerful. When it doesn't, it can be a little messy. What's the current state of IT and business collaboration in most companies from your point of view?
I think most companies have understood that you need to have someone that is on that front line between IT and business, because business speaks in different terms than IT. So you need somebody that is embedded in the business, understands the business needs, and especially the business outcome needs, and then somehow translates it into an intake process on the IT side, so that at the end of the day, it can be broken down into technology specific or process specific activities that an IT person or an implementer or a third party will understand and need. So I think that's well understood. How far is it implemented depends really on the maturity of the organization. So in my case, for instance, I have a team of business relationship managers, and their job is basically to sit with the business, understand the business, and translate on a very high level what does the business talk and what the business outcome needs are, and how does this translate to what is implemented within the organization.
Great. It sounds like, it's been this rise of the business operations type of role. You call them a relationship manager. It's that intermediary between IT and the front lines, right? To really make sure that the inputs and the outputs are well aligned. That's great. And we see that here at Automox too. It's kind of that business operations collaborations role to really make things work smoothly on both ends. On that note, where do you see the biggest disconnects between the IT teams and the front lines, the business?
It's really the not understanding how IT is impacting, influencing, supporting, or hindering business processes. So it's really not understanding what the business actually is doing. So take a financial institution. What is the day in the life of a teller that is talking to customers? What are the processes that they need to do on a daily basis? What are the different steps within the process, and how are IT systems impacting those steps? So not understanding that makes it very hard to support the business from an IT perspective.
That's It's a great point you make. It's really about the experience, understanding the experience of the business so that IT can tailor that experience, right? To reduce the friction, improve user ability to kind of delight their customers on a day-to-day basis. It's a great segue into this topic of experience versus control.
Mhm.
We've all been in conversations where improving the user experience sounds great, until the complexity of the implementation or the security of it comes into play. IT locks things down too tightly, usability suffers, a little bit of vice versa. How do you think about balancing those differences, the needs of the end user with the requirements from an IT perspective, like security, standardization, supportability?
So you have to start with understanding what is the user journey on the business side. So if you really want to do a CX-centric approach, you need to put yourself in their shoes. They need to really spell out what is the current state and what is the desired state on their side. So what would they like to see changing? So is it clicking less buttons to do an application, or is it not to have to jump between multiple windows when they have to fulfill a certain customer need in their space? Is it to have information available at their fingertips by having a AI-based search versus needing to go into different systems and then putting it together in an Excel file? So it's really understanding the user journey and then mapping that user journey to the current service offerings you have on the IT side. And I'm not even talking about security or friction or anything in that space. For me, it's starting with what are the service capabilities that help support that user journey, and then what are the gaps? Where do you have to come up with new capabilities? All of those services that we offer on the IT side need to be safe, secure, scalable. So that's a given. So that you ask about how do I balance between the friction and the actual functionality? The balance is really a risk question. How much risk am I willing to take as an organization to handle the different steps that a data transformation is going through when somebody is doing something in the IT systems? Where's the data located? Is it encrypted? Who has access to it? What's the classification? Those questions need to be answered generally for all the IT systems. And then based on that risk, you can allow certain access and certain ways of how the data is being handled, independently of what type of system it is in that space. So for me, the friction comes in when the need for access is larger than what the appetite for risk is for that data type that you want to manipulate in the system. So it's more a non-technical process and risk discussion versus a tool A versus tool B, or this is the functionality I'm expecting.
You made an analogy earlier to IT acting similarly to customer experience type of teams across the business. The only difference being your customers are the internal teams of the business, and it's your job to map out their processes and what their end state wants to look like, and help guide them from here to there, all while kind of playing within the guidelines of security posture and risk assessments, right?
Yep. And it's
You
really
know, I that
interesting. You always have the case that the business doesn't really know how to even articulate what good looks like for them. They have a certain idea, or in a lot of cases, we all know in IT, they come with a tool to you. They've seen something and they go implement. And I'm like, don't bring me the tool. What is the desired outcome? Which lever do you want to move? What needle do you want to move? And how can I help you do that? And then we can talk about a tool. But they should honestly not know about what tools being used to fulfill the need. That's the ideal state. Come to me with a problem description. What is it that you try to solve? and then let me deal with the technology implementation of that solution.
That's a theme that's been persistent across a lot of the conversations that I've had with leaders such as yourself is the proactive communication, right? Come to me with a problem so that you can help tailor a solution to that problem. A lot of the times, there's the business wants an answer and they want it quickly and they just want to move 100 miles an hour, but you're there really as guardrails, not to slow the process down, but to help guide them towards an ideal solution state that isn't just, I found a tool, implement my tool for me. It's really a partnership. And I think a lot of teams, both on the IT side and the business side, could learn from that point a lot is be proactive with your communication. Come to your IT practitioners with a problem and co-solve that problem. You'll end up with a better solution most times than not.
Absolutely, I totally agree.
So
For me, it's really sit together with your business and try to arrive at an agreement about this is what we would like to see solved in their own words, so that they are 100% signed up for going that journey with you. If you just take high level requirements and then you spend 3 months just trying to figure out what was it that they actually need solved, you will lose. It will never work.
yeah, Yeah, a lot of the times myself in finance, we kind of push the business for tool consolidation or budget efficiency or cost savings. Your teams are a big part of that. And it's not necessarily, when finance comes pushing the business for say cost savings, we always tend to gravitate towards, well, this thing cost me X amount of dollars. So if I don't use that tool, I'll save this much money. But really, what it is for us is about efficiency of time and capacity across the business. And I think that's your end goal too, is make the business the most efficient it can be and help solve problems more efficiently, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. For me, it's we start our intake process usually with a business justification. Does it even make sense to do? Given all the different components that you need to look into, does it make us more efficient? Does it save us time? Does it save us money? Does it simplify the steps from a user perspective? And then we write down that business justification. And we come back after the project and said, have we achieved all of what we went out to do so in that space? And that's independent if the finance is asking for it, or if a legal team is asking for it, or if another team is asking for it. You need to have a clear idea about what is it that you want to change.
Right. It's great because that leads us into this idea of metrics. What are the right metrics to track? And a lot of them, can be hard metrics in front of you. Performance per widget, or cost per seat, or whatever hard metric that is in front of you. But there's also kind of the soft savings, the soft metrics, ease of use, user experience, other synergies that you might get with other processes or tools. Is there any way that you balance kind of the mix of hard savings and hard metrics and soft metrics?
Yes, we do. So in different functions, not just in my current position, but what I'm trying to gauge is, okay, there are hard numbers, cost savings, time savings, those type of things. But when you really come from a user-centric design perspective, there's also how easy is it to run through the process? And we try to gauge this with surveys at the end of a service ticket, for instance. Just how easy was it to do this? We do project surveys during the project as well as at the end of the project and say, how easy was it to do business with us? At the end of the day, it's the same service philosophy that you would find in retail or in others, right? We as IT can't be blind to the fact that we are seen as a partner and we need to deliver positive outcomes. And for me, I measure the soft side rather with surveys, with talking to the stakeholders, making sure that we are actually maybe establishing a chat channel for the project implementation and the after implementation, and then just let everybody vent in there if necessary. That's a lot of good feedback you get to do it better the next time, or for your version 1.1 of something, you know exactly where to focus on to make it easier for your customer base.
And that's a perfect underscoring of kind of the business relationship management philosophy that you've taken with you to so many organizations that I've seen firsthand work tremendously well. So, Volker, I really appreciate the time today. I think our listeners have gotten a lot from it. I have gotten a lot from it. It's always good to hear from you. Um, One last question: any broad advice for the audience? Any general advice to give to them before we wrap up?
So it always comes down to what is true for not just the work life, right? Partnership and communication, transparency. Try to understand the motivation of your counterpart on the other side. For me, it's really important that people talk. And the
Yeah.
more you communicate, the more transparent, even as an IT team, you are in what is it that you try to make work, not work, or where you're not clear about. Talk about it. The further down in the project stream you bump into those problems, the more expensive it will be, either time, money, gray hair, or other stuff, right? So it's really about be a partner, understand the motivation of your stakeholders and counterparts, and the more you understand about their processes, the better you can serve them on that side. And vice versa. I teach my finance team about what we do in IT. So they understand why I'm asking for certain things in certain categories, right? But on the other hand, I understand a lot about how my day to day activities impact the top and the bottom line of the company because I know how it's being accounted for and how it's being depreciated and those type of things, right? So be open to learn outside of your area of competency. For me, it's really communicate, know how you impact each other, and then you have a much better relationship with much better outcomes.
Perfect way to wrap this up. I appreciate everything you've given us and the listeners. Volker, thank you so much. With that, we'll say thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Executive IT. Join us next month when we talk about Sysadmin Appreciation Month. You won't want to miss it. All right. Thanks, everyone.